Hey guys, welcome back to Second Kick Moto and Auto. That's the new channel name, and this is one of the first videos. So we got the Dyna Switchback in the back here, no pun intended, and we got to put a new back tire on it. It's got its life well out of it. So I am taking my rim to the Harley dealer tomorrow. So first thing I did was get it on the lift. And then I strapped the front securely. I got the jack under the back. I lifted it up, and I'll spin this camera around here in a second, and I'll show you what I got going on. Okay, so as you can see, it's muddy in my driveway, but there's not really any tread left on there. This is also a good way to get in and clean underneath the bike, because under my fender's dirty like crazy. So here we go. I've actually gone around and I've cheated a little bit because these can be really tight. So after I got the bike on the lift, I threw it in gear and I had the back lifted up and I undid the 5, just loosened them. I pulled that one out just so you could see what the drive pulley bolts. And we're going to try and cheat this a little bit. I might be able to do it, I might not, but I'm going to just try and loosen the axle off. And hopefully that keeps the correct belt tension, which I'll be going over when we put the wheel back on. So as you can see, I got the bike up on the lift. It's tied down. We got a jack. I'm lucky enough to have a lift, and I'm lucky enough that my lift has the hole underneath it. So hopefully I can just drop this wheel straight down and out of there without having to get too crazy. Some of you might have to pull the belt guard off. You might have to loosen your shocks to lower it. Also, depending on what you're doing, you might have to take your back fender off. But first thing I did was lost the saddlebags. They're quick connect on this bike, which is super easy anyways. And yeah, I'm going to get that axle loosened off and see if I can't get it out. And we'll see if we can drop this wheel down and out of here. Obviously, you'll have to get that out and try and shove the wheel forward a bit first to get the belt off. If I can't do that, then I'll check back in with you and show you what I had to do. Okay, so I just got the axle out, and I want you to be careful. If you're doing this on your own, there's spacers on each side. So you can see it. I'm trying to get this out one-handed here. You can see the spacer in there, and I'm going to pull that out in a second. There's also one on this side. But you want to keep track of left and right, just because that's going to center your wheel with your brakes and your drive pulley and whatnot. As far as the brakes go, I just knocked the axle back enough that I could just lift it up off, and it does slide into a little bracket right here, and that keeps it from spinning. So once you get that through enough, you'll be able to lift the brake up off, and you'll be able to get your spacer out. Your spacer sits right here against your wheel bearing. Just the nut itself, I'll just show you. I should have gone over that before I took it apart, but it's got a washer, a spacer, and it's actually got a little clip you got to pull off so the nut doesn't back off and leave on you going down the road. Once the nut was off, I've just backed it out and then I lightly tapped it through. Please don't hammer on that hard. That's not good for the axle. It's not good for threads. I know that there's a space there, but it's still not good for your axle. If you can't lightly tap it, then there's something wrong. And then once it was out far enough, I was actually able just to grab it and pull it out. So I actually put my board back in a little bit, and I took some tension off of it so the axle would come out easier. Next thing I'm going to do is actually jack the bike up a little bit, try and roll that forward and get my belt off, and then see if I can't get that out and just drop the wheel down through. Sorry, I don't have anybody else to film today, otherwise I'd be filming all of this as I do it, but I'll come back to you in steps. Okay, and that went real easy. I got the spacer out. As soon as I did that, I rolled the wheel forward a little bit, got the belt off, just sort of tucked it off to the side, held the wheel up with one hand, pulled the red plate out with the other, and lowered the wheel out nice and gently. And there it is. So, like I was saying, there's really not a lot of tread left on that. So we're just going to undo those 5 bolts and take that pulley off. One thing to do note, if you're doing this yourself, please get 5 new bolts for your drive pulley. I called the dealership. They don't need the rotor taken off, but they do need the drive pulley taken off. These are one-time use bolts, and they should be Loctited back in. A lot of guys actually strip or break them trying to take them out, even on pretty new bikes. I was lucky, got all these loose, so I'm going to take these off, take the pulley off, and I'm going to get 5 new ones when I'm at the dealer. Next time I check with you, and I should be at the dealership. Talk to you soon. Okay, thanks to COVID, it took a week to get my tires in. I got my son here, Tommy, which you don't normally see. We got COVID cuts because, hey, it's hot out. So I got the rim and tire here. I've actually put the drive pulley back on for the belt drive. I advise getting new bolts. Make sure you put blue Loctite on them at very least and put the right torque specs on. That varies from bike to bike, but check it out. Most Harley manuals have them in them. So Tommy's going to help me here. I'm actually going to hold the wheel up under, and he's going to put the door back underneath, the little trap door, so I can then start putting the wheel back on. So I'll get that done, then we'll break and we'll come back to it. You ready, son?
Yeah.
Thanks, kid.
And then back.
Okay. I will be right back. Okay, so all I've done since I cut out after putting the wheel up is I put the pulley into place. I put the first spacer in, and I've just started the axle through. Now I am trying to do this without loosening the adjusters. This is easier if you do, and I might still have to do that. If I do, just count your turns that you take out and take even numbers out of each side, and then put the same back into it when you tighten it back up again, and then do your belt measurements to make sure that you're within your specs. So I just gonna tap this through. Make sure you get your spacers that you had. I've got my spacer in here, and I'm gonna tap this through until I see it start to poke out the other side, put my spacer and then my brake system back on. So I'm just poking through on this side. I'm going to see if I can get the spacer in now. See if I can get it to stay there. Okay. I also want to see if I can get the brakes down in. Okay, I'm going to pull the brake caliper off just because I've got a brake pad that's slipped down now and it's fighting me, so I'll be back in 1 minute and I'll try and get on the other side there. Okay guys, sorry about that. I actually had to pull the axle back out, and I actually pulled the spacer out, moved it over, and I'm just going to go through this with you. Put the bike up in the air a little bit, because you have to get, I don't know if I can get in here. Yeah, there we go. That has to get slidden back over. That's what stops your brake caliper from spinning. And then I've got the scissor jack, which is really nice because I could go up and down as I needed to. So I actually put the spacers, I started the spacer on the other side, got it into the actual wheel bearing, started bringing it across, and this really helps if you got an extra guy. That's why I was struggling a bit. Got the caliper in place, started over top of the rotor as I lowered it down, and I put my spacer in just so it was sitting in place there. You got your wheel spacer on this side right here, and I just tapped it across gently till I could get that started. Then I tapped it till it was gently through the brake caliper and put a little push on the wheel because there is tension, because the belt is tensioned. if you want to not be lazy like me right now, you could actually just, you know, undo these 2 bolts. Remember I said to count your turns, just to take the axle travel forward, and it'd be a lot easier. But I just got it started into this spacer coming through, and see if I can do this without shaking you guys too bad. You'll see my axle. Okay, I'm gonna put you down, it's a lot easier. I promise you, if I hit 100 subscribers, we're gonna get better equipment. Okay. Okay. So now the axle's through. We're going to put on our washer. Going to get our nut started. I haven't looked up my torque specs yet, so I'm going to look up my torque spec. We're going to torque it. Then we're going to put our retaining clip on, so if that nut ever backs off, the wheel doesn't leave. And that'll be it, other than putting saddlebags on. So I'm going to actually look up the torque specs right now, and I'm going to torque my axle in properly. I'm probably going to go through and retorque my caliper bolts, and I'll be right back again. Okay guys, we're back. Sorry, I want to get the bike in the shot. I don't really care if I am or not. I actually had to pull the 2 brackets, or 2 bolts out that hold the bracket for the muffler so I could push it down. 36 mil is what I've got that fits this. I don't know what that is in standard. It's big, because I want to torque the nut. I don't want to torque the axle actually coming through, because this is what's going to tighten up more. So on the other side, we're actually 1 1/8 inches. So I've got it to the turn side. I've got my torque wrench now. To clear this big muffler, I'm going to be putting an extension on it. So the torque specs that I could find say 60 to 65 foot-pounds. Because I've got the extension on there, I'm going to go with the full 65, because when you put an extension on, you actually lose some of the torque out of it, or can. So I'm going to go to the 65 foot-pounds. Torque it nicely, and after we're going to lift the bike up, spin it, make sure everything looks good. We're going to check our belt tension as well. So I've already set my torque wrench to 65. And obviously, the shorter the extension you can use, the better. And we're just going to tighten it up until it clicks. Now, if for some reason my axle tension with my belt drive is out, we're going to have to loosen this back off. Okay, now to take this back off, I actually have to pull that off, push down on the muffler, pull that off, and now I'm going to put my 2 bolts back in up front. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on them. So they go into the transmission, and they hold your brackets for your exhaust and for your tailpipe. So it actually works. There's 2 brackets that come off these bolts that hold the pipes, and the big bracket that comes back to the muffler. And that's 2. Okay. So, let's put our retaining clip back in, which I dropped on the floor, just to keep that nut from ever coming off and the axle from backing out. There it is in place. So now I'm going to lift the bike up a bit. Make sure when you spin it up, have a look, make sure that everything looks aligned properly. Make sure your wheel looks straight. Try to look at your brakes and your drive pulley, make sure nothing's crooked. I'm actually going to, I checked my tension already just by pushing up. I'm going to take the suspension travel back down to where it's sitting at ride height, and I'm going to give it a push again and check it. Your specs are in your manual, and I'll bring you around. And this is where you're looking. These are your measurements for your drive belt adjustment. And like I said, if you want to make life easier, you'll actually adjust this axle forward after you loosen it. But count your turns and make sure they're equal from one side to the other to keep the wheel straight. Otherwise, you'll end up making the wheel crooked and you'll wreck your belt, wear brakes funny, and the bike won't ride right either. Okay, guys, so that's the wheel back on. It's not too hard of a job. It's really easy if you've got a lift. Now, if I didn't have the lift with the door, I would have ended up taking the back fender off the bike and just rolled it straight back out. I'm actually going to go through it. I'm going to give this all a good clean before I put the saddlebags back on. It's the nice thing with the switchback is it's just 3 pins and a half-turn cam lock, and the saddlebags are back on. Okay, I hope this has helped. I'm sorry I couldn't show you more. I'm going to try, like I said, if I hit 100 subscribers, we're going to get a good camera. I'm going to get proper tripods, everything. Okay. So, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Like my video if it helps. And feel free to ask me any questions you need to in comments. And if you want to know when I put up more content, tap that bell. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day.